Take a deep breath, and let's hear a story about Abigail, a passionate baker who turns her hidden talent for sweets into a dream. Confectionery after winning a baking competition. In the small town of Meadowbrook, where morning mists gently caressed the cobblestone streets, lived Abigail Carter, a woman with flour-dusted hands and dreams as sweet as honey. Her apartment above the old bookstore was filled with the scent of vanilla and cinnamon, a testament to her evening experiments with flavors and textures. The soft glow of her kitchen light often burned until midnight, as she perfected recipes that existed only in her imagination and heart. Every morning, Abigail would wake to birdsong filtering through her lace curtains, taking a moment to breathe deeply and count her blessings before beginning her day. She would trace her fingers along her collection of vintage cookbooks, their pages worn and marked with notes from generations of bakers before her. Her grandmother's handwritten recipe cards were her most treasured possession, kept safely in a wooden box carved with roses and vines. The walk to Fuller's Bakery was Abigail's time to gather her thoughts, feeling the crisp morning air fill her lungs as she noticed the changing seasons in the maple trees lining the street. Mr. Wilson would wave from his porch, sipping his morning tea, while the neighborhood cats stretched lazily in patches of sunlight. Abigail would silently wish good morning to each familiar face, grateful for the sense of belonging in this community. Fuller's Bakery was known throughout the county for its artisanal breads and savory pastries, the aroma drawing customers from the moment the doors opened at 6. The brick oven, over 50 years old, imparted a distinct flavor that newer establishments could never quite replicate. Abigail appreciated working at such a respected establishment, even as her heart yearned for sugar and spice rather than salt and herbs. Behind the counter, Abigail worked with precision and care, her hands moving with practiced grace as she shaped baguettes and focaccia. Fuller, with his stern expression and traditional ways, insisted that savory breads were the foundation of a proper bakery. Leave the frilly decorations and excessive sugar to the cake shops, he would say with a dismissive wave, unaware of how Abigail's smile would falter just slightly. During quiet moments when the morning rush subsided, Abigail would find herself sketching cake designs on the edges of order slips. Three-tiered masterpieces with delicate fondant flowers, rustic buttercream textures inspired by the surrounding countryside, flavor combinations that would complement each other like old friends reuniting. She would quickly tuck these dreams away when the bell above the door announced another customer. On Wednesday afternoons, the bakery closed early, and Abigail would spend these precious hours in her tiny kitchen, transforming it into a laboratory of sweetness. The therapeutic rhythm of beating butter and sugar until light and fluffy never failed to ease the tension in her shoulders. The transformation of humble ingredients into something magical felt like meditation, each step grounding her in the present moment. The neighbors in Abigail's building had become willing taste testers, their feedback delivered with kind honesty that helped her refine each creation. Mrs. Romano from apartment 3B claimed Abigail's lemon sponge cake reminded her of summers in Sicily, while Professor Jenkins insisted her chocolate ganache was empirically superior to any he had tasted in his extensive travels. Their encouragement was as nourishing to Abigail as fresh bread. On a particularly golden autumn afternoon, as maple leaves danced outside her window and her kitchen filled with the comforting scent of apples and brown butter, Abigail's phone chimed with an email notification. The subject line read, "Baking Championship Auditions, Final Call." Her heart skipped as her flour-dusted finger hovered over the screen, the possibility both terrifying and exhilarating. The popular television show, America's Next Great Baker, was holding auditions in a city just 2 hours away, seeking passionate bakers with original ideas and technical skill. Abigail had watched every season, studying techniques and imagining herself under the bright lights and ticking clock of the competition kitchen. The application deadline was midnight, giving her just enough time to complete the form and submit photos of her best work. With hands slightly trembling, Abigail selected images of her most beautiful creations: the triple chocolate mousse cake with mirror glaze, the delicate lavender macarons, the summer-berry tart with perfectly crisp pastry. Each photo represented hours of practice, failed attempts, and eventual triumphs, a visual diary of her journey as a baker. The personal statement asked why she deserved this opportunity, and the words flowed from her heart like warm honey. As she pressed submit, a sense of peace washed over her, regardless of the outcome. The act of acknowledging her dream, of taking a step toward it, rather than keeping it locked away, felt like setting down a heavy burden she had carried for too long. That night, Abigail slept deeply, the scent of spiced apple cake still lingering in her apartment, dreams filled with colors as vibrant as her fondant flowers. Two weeks passed, and Abigail had almost convinced herself that her application had been lost in the sea of talented bakers seeking the same opportunity. The rejection would sting, but she had prepared herself for it, focusing instead on the joy of creating rather than competing. On a rainy Tuesday, as she kneaded dough with extra vigor, her phone vibrated in her apron pocket with a call from an unknown number. Finding a quiet corner away from the bustle of the bakery, Abigail answered with a slightly breathless, "Hello?" The voice on the other end was warm and enthusiastic, introducing herself as a producer from America's Next Great Baker. "Your application stood out, Abigail. We'd love to have you at our live auditions next Saturday." Can you bring one signature bake that tells us your story? Abigail pressed her back against the cool tile wall for support, a smile spreading across her face like sunshine breaking through clouds. In the days that followed, Abigail moved through her work at Fuller's with renewed purpose, each savory creation receiving her full attention while her mind simultaneously planned her audition piece, Mr. Fuller noticed the extra spring in her step, but attributed it to the changing season rather than her changing future. Each evening, Abigail tested components of her planned showstopper, a 3-layered cake inspired by her grandmother's garden, layers of elderflower, honey, and lavender, each flavor distinct yet harmonious together. The audition day dawned clear and bright, as if the universe had polished the sky, especially for this moment that felt pivotal in Abigail's quiet life. She had carefully packed her created cake in a specially designed carrier, along with a small emergency kit of tools and extra decorations. The drive to the city passed in a blur of nervous anticipation, her favorite playlist of calming classical music doing little to slow her racing thoughts. The convention center buzzed with activity, filled with bakers of all ages clutching their precious creations and dreams with equal care. The air was rich with a symphony of aromas: chocolate, cinnamon, vanilla, and the distinctive scent of fondant being worked by nervous hands. Abigail found comfort in this gathering of kindred spirits, people who understood the magic that happened when flour met butter and sugar. When her number was called, Abigail approached the judging table with steady hands and a hammering heart, placing her creation before the panel of expert bakers and chefs. This is Grandmother's Garden, a 3-layer cake inspired by the woman who taught me that baking is a form of love made visible. As she described each component, the technical challenges she had overcome, and the story behind her flavor choices, her voice grew stronger, her passion evident in every word. The head judge, a pâtissier renowned for his exacting standards, took a deliberate bite, his expression revealing nothing as he savored the combination of delicate elderflower sponge, honey buttercream, and lavender mousse. The silence stretched like pulled sugar, teetering on the edge of breaking, before his face softened into an appreciative smile. The flavors speak to each other in perfect harmony, like old friends sharing secrets. You've captured something special here. As Abigail returned to her hotel room that evening, exhaustion and elation competed for dominance in her body. The judges had been impressed enough to advance her to the next round of selections, which meant she would be filmed for a possible spot on the actual show. Sinking onto the edge of the bed, she called her best friend, Lucy, who squealed with such genuine delight that Abigail had to hold the phone away from her ear, laughing for what felt like the first time in days. 3 weeks later, Abigail received the call that changed everything. She had been selected as one of 12 contestants for the upcoming season of America's Next Great Baker. The producer outlined what would happen next: 6 weeks of filming, all expenses paid, beginning the following month. Reality crashed into her dream as she realized she would need to request an extended leave from Fuller's Bakery, a conversation she had been avoiding in her moments of doubt. Mr. Fuller's bushy eyebrows drew together like thunderclouds when Abigail nervously explained her situation the next morning before opening. "So you've been making cakes behind my back, have you?" His gruff voice held an edge that made Abigail's stomach tighten. "And now you want to abandon your responsibilities here for some flashy television show?" The silence that followed was heavy with disappointment from both sides of the conversation. "I've never missed a day of work in 3 years, mister." "Fuller," Abigail replied softly but firmly, her hands clasped tightly behind her back to hide their slight trembling. "This is an opportunity I can't pass up, even though I respect everything you've taught me about baking." For a moment, she thought she glimpsed something like pride beneath his frown, but it vanished as quickly as it had appeared, replaced by a businesslike nod. "I can't hold your position, Abigail. If you leave for 6 weeks, I'll need to hire someone permanent." His words were matter of fact, neither cruel nor kind, simply the reality of running a small business. Abigail had expected this response, but still felt its impact like a physical weight. "I understand," she replied, surprised by the steady clarity of her own voice. "Thank you for everything, Mr. Fuller. I'll work until the end of next week if that helps with the transition." The following month passed in a whirlwind of preparation, paperwork, and goodbyes to Fuller's Bakery, to her cozy apartment temporarily sublet to a doctoral student, and to the comfortable routine that had defined her life for years. Packing for 6 weeks of unknown challenges, Abigail included small talismans of comfort: her grandmother's measuring spoons, a well-worn notebook of recipes, and a small vial of lavender oil that would center her when anxiety threatened to overwhelm. The competition kitchen was both intimidating and exhilarating, gleaming with professional equipment under the harsh studio lights. 11 other bakers, all with their own stories and specialties, became Abigail's companions in this strange new world of cameras, microphones, and ticking countdown clocks. While competition naturally created distance, a camaraderie developed among them, the shared understanding of the passion that had brought them all to this moment. The first challenge tested their fundamental skills: a perfect Genoise sponge with Italian meringue buttercream. Abigail felt her advantage here, having practiced this particular combination countless times in her small kitchen. As the whisks of her stand mixer transformed egg whites and sugar into glossy peaks, she found herself entering the familiar meditative state that baking always induced, the cameras fading from her awareness as she focused on each precise motion. Week by week, as contestants were eliminated, Abigail remained, her quiet confidence growing with each successful creation. The judges praised her technical precision, her balanced flavors, and most surprisingly to Abigail herself, her artistic vision. "You have an innate understanding of how flavors and textures complement each other," the head judge commented after her orange blossom and pistachio entremet received the highest marks of the day. It's like watching a composer arrange notes into a perfect melody. Halfway through the competition, the remaining 6 bakers faced their greatest challenge yet, creating a showstopper, wedding cake that represented their personal baking philosophy. Abigail sketched her design during quiet moments in the shared apartment, envisioning a 4-tier creation that told the story of seasons changing, with each layer representing the unique characteristics and flavors of spring, summer, autumn, and winter, connected by a cascade of sugar flowers that transitioned in color and type. The 18-hour bake stretched Abigail's skills and endurance to their limits, hands moving with practiced precision even as fatigue settled deep in her shoulders and back. A small disaster struck when her Italian meringue buttercream began to separate in the warm kitchen, but years of troubleshooting in less than ideal conditions had prepared her for such moments. Taking a deep breath of resolve, she quickly adjusted the temperature and saved the silky frosting, earning an approving nod from the passing judge. As Abigail placed the final sugar rose on her completed masterpiece, stepping back to view her creation in its entirety, a profound sense of accomplishment washed over her like gentle rain. Regardless of the judge's decision, she had created something beautiful that represented her journey and philosophy as a baker. The tier of spring, with its delicate lemon and elderflower sponge, flowed seamlessly into summer's rich strawberry and basil, then autumn's spiced apple and caramel, finally crowned by winter's decadent chocolate and peppermint layer. The judges circled her creation, studying it from every angle before the ceremonial cutting revealed perfectly defined layers within. The narrative of your cake is clear in both appearance and flavor, noted the head judge, his usual reserve softened by genuine appreciation. Each element stands beautifully on its own, yet contributes to a harmonious whole. This is the work of someone who understands that baking is both science and storytelling. Abigail felt tears prick behind her eyes at this validation of everything she had worked toward. When the announcement came that Abigail had not only won the challenge, but secured her place in the final 3 contestants, the studio lights seemed to glow a little brighter, the air a little sweeter, as she absorbed the reality of how far she had come. That night, lying awake in the unfamiliar bed, she allowed herself to imagine a future different from the one she had accepted, not returning to Fuller's Bakery, but creating a space where her own vision could flourish, where sugar and spice would take center stage rather than remain secret experiments. The finale of America's Next Great Baker was filmed in a grand historic hotel, with the 3 remaining contestants given 2 days to create a multi-element dessert display that would showcase every skill they had demonstrated throughout the competition. Abigail's concept centered around a garden of sweet delights, featuring a centerpiece cake surrounded by coordinating petit fours, macarons, entremet, and chocolate work, all designed to transport the judges through a sensory journey of her signature flavors. As the hours of the final challenge ticked away, Abigail worked with focused intensity, each movement purposeful and precise despite the cameras capturing her every expression. The tempering of chocolate for delicate decorations, the careful balancing of acidic and sweet components, the artistic arrangement of elements, all the skills honed through years of practice, culminated in this moment of creation. When the host called "Time's up," Abigail stepped back from her completed display with emptied lungs and a full heart. The judges approached each finalist's table with ceremonial solemnity, their expertise allowing them to appreciate details that would escape the average viewer: the perfect snap of tempered chocolate, the ideal consistency of pastry cream, the technical difficulty behind seemingly simple decorations. At Abigail's display, they lingered longer than expected, their questions penetrating beyond technique to the inspiration and intention behind each element, which Abigail answered with eloquent simplicity. The announcement came after what felt like hours of deliberation, the 3 finalists standing shoulder to shoulder under lights that seemed to generate physical heat. The winner of this season of America's Next Great Baker is The host's practiced pause stretched the moment to its breaking point before he continued. Abigail Carter. The words reached her ears a split second before their meaning reached her brain, her body responding with a surprised intake of breath, while the studio erupted in applause around her. In the whirlwind of congratulations, interviews, and celebrations that followed, Abigail held on to a center of calm gratitude that kept her grounded when the experience threatened to become overwhelming. The prize money, $50,000, represented not just financial reward, but possibility, the seed from which her long-held dream could finally grow. The title brought validation, but more valuable was the confidence she had gained through each challenge overcome and skill mastered. 2 months after returning to Meadowbrook. Now recognized by strangers who had watched her journey on television, Abigail stood in an empty storefront on Maple Avenue, sunlight streaming through large windows that would soon showcase her creations. The space had history and character: exposed brick walls, hardwood floors worn smooth by decades of footsteps, and most importantly, excellent ventilation for the ovens that would soon fill the air with the scents of butter, sugar, and possibility. With the prize money as foundation and a small business loan secured through her meticulously prepared plan, Abigail began the transformation of the empty space into Abigail's sweet alchemy. She chose every element with care: the warm cream color for the walls, the display cases custom built by a local craftsman, the comfortable seating area where customers could linger over coffee and conversation. Each decision reflected her vision of creating not just a bakery, but a haven of sweetness and comfort. The learning curve of business ownership proved steep but navigable, each challenge teaching Abigail something new about herself and her capabilities. Ordering supplies, managing finances, hiring staff, developing a menu that would change with the seasons while maintaining beloved staples. These tasks stretched her in ways that baking alone never had. Yet even on the most overwhelming days, the joy of creation remained her centering force, the reason behind every early morning and late night. Lucy, Abigail's best friend since childhood, left her corporate job to become the bakery's business manager, her organizational skills complementing Abigail's creative focus. "We always said we'd work together someday," Lucy reminded her as they sorted through applications for counter staff. "Though I imagined us opening a bookstore, not a bakery." "But this is better. Your passion is contagious, Abby, and the sampling perks are unbeatable." Their laughter echoed in the still empty space, a preview of the warmth that would soon fill it. On a crisp October morning, 6 months after her television victory, Abigail turned the key in the door of Abigail's Sweet Alchemy for its grand opening. The display cases gleamed with colorful macarons, elegant tarts, rustic layer cakes, and signature pastries, each recipe perfected through years of experimentation. The coffee machine hissed welcomingly, and vases of fresh flowers brightened each table, their scent mingling with the aroma of freshly baked bread and cinnamon rolls still warm from the oven. The line that formed before opening had surprised even Lucy's optimistic projections, stretching down the block and around the corner, full of both familiar faces from the community and strangers who had followed Abigail's journey on television. Mr. Wilson from her old neighborhood was near the front, leaning on his cane with dignified patience. More surprisingly, Mr. Fuller himself stood stiffly in line, his expression unreadable beneath his bushy eyebrows, a small package tucked under one arm. As Abigail unlocked the door precisely at 7 a.m., the bell she had carefully selected chimed with a clear, sweet note that seemed to signal the official beginning of this new chapter. "Welcome to Sweet Alchemy," she greeted each customer with genuine warmth, the weeks of preparation falling away as the space came alive with conversation, appreciation, and the simple joy of sharing something made with care. By mid-morning, the sold-out signs began appearing on certain items, exceeding even their most ambitious expectations. During a brief lull, Mr. Fuller approached the counter, setting his package down with ceremonial precision. "Thought you might need this," he said gruffly, watching as Abigail unwrapped the brown paper to reveal a wooden bread peel. When smoothed by decades of use, with her name now burned into the handle in elegant script. Every baker needs proper tools. The simple gift conveyed what his words would not: respect, approval, perhaps even pride in what his former employee had accomplished. "Thank you for everything you taught me, mister." "Fuller," Abigail said sincerely, running her fingers over the smooth wood that had shifted countless loaves in and out of the brick oven at his bakery. "The foundation matters in baking and in life. I wouldn't be here without those years at Fuller's." Something in her genuine gratitude seemed to soften the older baker's reserve, a slight smile appearing beneath his mustache as he nodded acknowledgement before selecting one of her signature elderflower cakes to take home. As evening approached and the last customers reluctantly departed, Abigail and her small team gathered around one of the cafe tables, tired feet and aching backs momentarily forgotten as they toasted with sparkling cider to a successful first day. The late sunlight filtered through the windows, casting a golden glow across the now empty display cases, the clean counters, and the espresso machine waiting silently for tomorrow's first brew. The bakery held the lingering warmth of ovens, the faint sweetness of sugar, and most importantly, the satisfaction of dreams realized. Later, after everyone had gone and she was alone in her bakery, Abigail walked slowly through the space, turning off lights, straightening chairs, and absorbing the peaceful quiet that followed the day's joyful bustle. At the kitchen door, she paused to look back at what she had created, not just the physical space with its equipment and furnishings, but the fulfillment of the vision she had carried through years of working in other people's kitchens, following other people's recipes. As she finally locked the door behind her, the cool evening air refreshing against her face after hours in the warm kitchen, Abigail felt a profound sense of contentment settle over her like a comfortable blanket. The path forward would bring challenges and learning curves, quiet days and overwhelming ones, but she had proven to herself that she possessed the courage to pursue her passion, the skill to create beauty, and the resilience to transform setbacks into opportunities for growth. The stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky as Abigail walked home, her steps lighter despite the long day, her mind already planning tomorrow's specials and seasonal additions to the menu. The scents of sugar and spice seemed to cling to her clothes and hair, a sweet reminder of the day's accomplishments. In her heart, gratitude bloomed like the sugar flowers on her winning cake, for the journey that had brought her here, for the challenges that had strengthened her, and for the sweetness of dreams fulfilled through persistence and passion.